This video, we are going to be farming tier 29, the Stitch minion. I'll be showcasing what my team actually looks like, and then actually like playing it out. So you can see that this team is far below the recommended amount of power. Pretty standard build, really. We're going to be controlling Sully. His infinite lure is extremely important and helps make this team actually function properly. I've given my Sully a more offensive build. Some people like defensive, but because we're trying to punch up, we need as much attack as possible. So we use his basic attack, we use the seismic surge, so additional damage on his special ability, and then we also are giving him 5% armor for each enemy hit when using his special ability. I'm not a huge fan of his core ability. The last one, sorry, with the additional armor that's given. I just don't find it to be as beneficial because we're going to be using his special ability continuously throughout combat. The attack, again, is really key because he's actually going to be important for dealing actual damage. We have Jack Skellington specifically for his attack up and defense down to the enemy, and Zerg, of course. So we always want to start with Sully and manual him to begin with. And we want to make sure that as soon as combat starts, we click on Stitch's portrait. By clicking on Stitch's portrait, it means Stitch will only go after Sully because I have primarily targeted him. If I don't do that, then that means that the enemy AI will kind of pick whoever the closest target is, which is not necessarily Sully. So right now I just click Stitch's portrait. He's only going to be coming after me. And we can see we've already triggered Sully's lure, which is really important. Now we're going to try to knock those goons together. Yep, and we got the double root. Typically, I want to try to keep Stitch on the far side closest to my team. And that way, you know, I'll be doing the most amount of damage to him since he obviously has the largest health pool. So right here, I knock them back. I'm going to try to lead Stitch this way. He's on the close side now, the near side to specifically Zerg. Like, it's great that he's closest to Jack Skellington too. He's going to be doing damage there, but it's not extremely important. We know for sure that the goons are going to go down. I don't want to say necessarily easily, but they have a much smaller health pool than the rest of them. Than Stitch, sorry. So we were able to root them all together, which is great. We're just going to attack. I'm actually going to target Stitch. So I can see that his metallic is on, which means he actually has a defensive buff. Okay, so Stitch is not on the near side. That's okay. But we actually want to let Stitch actually perform his heavy attack so that he goes out of metallic mode. Because if I recall correctly, it can both cause it to trigger as well as turn it off. So right now, as soon as he's done making that special, you can see that he doesn't have metallic anymore on him, which is important, or at least it's helpful, I should say. Without having the metallic on, it means I'll actually be able to do more damage to him. So we just want to be mindful of that because damage can be a concern in this fight. We are doing a bit of a punch up, as I mentioned, so we just need to be aware of when and where we're doing the damage and who we're doing the damage to. So we can see that the other goon is now taken down. We can see Stitch is about to special. He has metallic on. He's going to special, and now it's off, and that's perfect timing with Zerg's special ability because now there's not the additional defense buff that's occurring. So I'm just going to bully this goon kind of into the same corner. Stitch is about to special, which is perfect timing. You know, I was able to push the goon closer to him, so now he's still on the near side. I'm going to keep on attacking the goon. I'm now going to special. This should give Sully armor. He's already at maximum armor, so we're pretty good. We want to be careful with these shocknados. We want to keep them closest to this right side because otherwise Zerg will target them, and that means we're not getting as much damage on Stitch himself. And as I mentioned, Stitch has the most amount of HP, of course. He is the main enemy on this fight. Goons have, you know, some amount of HP, and so do the tornadoes, but it's not nearly as significant as whoever our primary target is, whoever our main enemy. So in this case, that is Stitch. So the minion or the sentinel or the gatekeeper, whatever. So yeah, positioning here, it's somewhat important, but it's not extremely important. You could end up dropping Sully here and just going full on Zerg if you wanted to. I usually wait until the last tornado comes out, and kill him first, especially because it's stormborn, so these mini titans, it's just, if there's what is it, 2 shocks, I think, on the target, then you end up getting stunned, or maybe it's 3. But point is, you just don't want to get stunned. So I'm just kind of waiting. And now at this point, we can see that we have just under a minute left, but now it's just Stitch. We've had the 2 tornadoes come out on the right and the 1 come out on the left. 55 seconds left, and we're just going to Zerg the fight. It's fine if Sully ends up dying. Using Zerg's heavy attack and doing this amount of damage plus the shock is good enough. Stitch will be able to move. Like, there is a little bit of a time difference between when I can use specials, but something just to keep in mind, because when a teammate ends up dying, right, there is a amount of time that actually ticks off the timer. So we want to place Zerg closest to Stitch, because that way Stitch will go after him, as you saw before. So anyway, that's the whole punch up. Pretty simple fight, to be honest. You get a decent amount of points, and I find that fight to be the easiest out of all the other minions. Like, you could go after a Dory minion, of course, which will give you more points comparatively based on the amount of energy, but I think the ease of a fight is the key component to it, as well as the consistency. Because, like, I can do this fight every single time. I do need to pay attention for it, but it's not as challenging as some of these other fights where you would have to use, I don't want to say an unideal combination, but I think, like, in this case, you'd want to use, like, Swan, maybe Genie, and Skellington again, just so that you could get the punch up. With a lot of these high-tier minion fights, you really do need to have a primary damage dealer, and I would say also someone who buffs your team or debuffs the enemy team. The challenging part in some of these minion fights are when there's, like, ranged enemies, for example, like a ranged goon, or in this case 2. This would actually have me consider using Daisy because of her indestruct, her attribute buff, and so on. But I would worry about the amount of damage that we can actually do in this fight. Everything would be kind of relying on Swan, and at tier 29, damage is so important in a lot of these fights. The health pool just gets so incredibly high, so you have to do continuous damage. And the one thing I don't like about Swan is her inconsistency on her special, because the cannonballs drop randomly. One will always hit the enemy target, but you don't know where the other ones are going. So just something to keep in mind when approaching some of these fights. But yeah, hope you guys found this helpful.